Oh wow, you can connect your Zoom to
Yeah,
Facebook. Huh?
yeah, we're live actually right now. Give me one moment. I just want to make sure that we're locked, and then we'll go from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, we're live, my friend.
All right.
So, okay. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? I hope everyone's having an awesome Sunday today. Thank you for joining us for another VTW webinar. And we are so excited and we are honored to have our guest, Bach clinician and artist, Mr. Serafin Aguilar. Serafin, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you? How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you, Joseph, for inviting me to be a participant in your webcast here. It's an honor. Any chance I get to share with friends and help in any way, I always jump at the opportunity. So thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to do so.
Our pleasure. So, Serafin, let's get right into it because a lot of people want to know about you. So, let's talk about your beginnings as a musician. How did you get the horn in your hand? And if you could talk a little bit about that.
All right. So the skinny of it, I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles from immigrant parents. I'm a first-born generation American. Um, and my dad's from Colombia. My mother's from El Salvador. And they divorced shortly after I was born. And I went to live with my dad. And my dad's a great singer. Never did anything professionally, but he's got amazing ears. And I gravitated towards music as a result of just listening to him sing all day long. So I started imitating him, and eventually, what ended up happening was that a choir teacher, fourth grade, when I switched over to a different school because my dad's work schedule changed, and he couldn't take me to this other school anymore, so we moved to a closer school to the house. The choir teacher would come once or twice a week and sing songs with us and keep everybody uh, their brains more musically um, aware. So she heard me, and she by the second time she went to the class, she's like, "Oh, do you mind coming over to the auditorium after school and auditioning for me for the choir?" And by this point, I was already with. There's a term, I don't know if it's still popular now or if it's even politically correct, but when I was a kid, if your parents worked and nobody was around to take care of you, you were considered a latchkey kid. Basically, you had your key to your house latched to you, hence the term latchkey.
Right.
So my dad was working 12 hours a day trying to support us, and obviously I would take myself to school. That's why we changed schools, and I would walk myself back home by myself. And now we're talking 9 years old, fourth grade.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and she listened to me and she said, I noticed you have a good ear. You pick up melodies very quickly. And I just want to see how proficient you are at doing that. So she started hitting notes on the piano and I sang them. And then she started singing melodies and they became more complex. And I followed her. She goes, "Well, I have a good ear." She says, "Would you like to be in the choir?" So I said, "Sure, why not?" And like I said, my dad was getting home 6, 7 o'clock every day from work and school's out at 2:30. So you can imagine there's a lot of time for me to do all kinds of things. So I kind of did my own thing. And so I went and I participated in the choir. And shortly after joining the choir, I saw the drums. And one of the kids was banging on the drums and it fascinated me. So maybe a couple weeks into it. And she saw that I was interested. So she said, "Do you want to learn how to play drums?" I said, "Sure, why not?" And I joined the orchestra. So now I'm in the choir of the orchestra and I'm doing all these things, fourth and fifth grade, through elementary school. Get to junior high school. I'm in the school orchestra. And in the school orchestra, I'm playing the pit percussion. And one of my buddies says, "Hey, why don't you learn to play trumpet?" And I was like, "No, man, I like what I'm doing now. This is much more difficult than what you're doing." He goes, "No, that's not." He says, "No." I said, "Listen, I'll tell you what. I bet you that I can learn your instrument before you learn mine. That's how much more difficult my instrument is than yours." He says, "You're on." So we set a date for the audition for the senior orchestra. We were in the junior orchestra, we're sixth graders. And the senior orchestra was seventh and eighth graders only, but anybody was allowed to audition. So the date came, And of course, me being the procrastinator that I am, I did not even know how to hold the instrument by the time the audition day came. So I told my friend, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. What am I supposed to do? He goes, you're a sucker, dude. He says, look, this is what you do. He says, hold it like this. These are the things. He literally taught me. It was like a C scale, and one of the pieces, an excerpt from one of the pieces that the orchestra was playing, Farandoli. I can't believe I still remember that. That was 1985, 86,
Wow.
a long time ago. I'm dusty. I'm old as dust. But so I went in and I did it, and somehow I just literally it was recess, 15 minutes. That's all he took, and the audition happened, and I ended up getting. The teacher didn't know that I didn't know how to play trumpet. He just heard, and I ended up getting first trumpet in the orchestra.
Oh, wow.
And mind you, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have chops. I didn't have ability of any kind. I didn't have any dexterity in my fingers. So, and we're talking like in an advanced orchestra where I'm supposed to be playing the principal trumpet chair. And needless to say, it was quite the adventure. I got in there. The teacher didn't know, and I would ask people, "What do I do? What am I supposed to do?" And I kind of figured it out on my own. And then really, what happened was that at that time, I don't know if that's something that's popular now, but they have tracks, A track, B track, and C track in the school system, as opposed to some the traditional school system where it's just one body of students go throughout the year and they have the summer off. In this system, it's three tracks or three bodies of students that are using the same facility at the same time. Not at the same time, different times. It's staggered, so that you can fit more kids into one school.
Right.
So I would have 2 months off, and the first 2 months I had, like I said, my dad was working 12 hours a day, and I had nothing to do. I didn't want to hang out at home, so I would go back to school, and I had nowhere to go. So I would just. I remember the first day I just went and I just sat in the auditorium, and because orchestra was going year round, so I had the excuse of being on campus.
Mm-hmm.
I got in and I'm sitting there, and first orchestra's done, second orchestra's done, nutrition, and after nutrition, I come and I sit back, and first he didn't say anything. The Mr. Davidson, Charlie Davidson, he didn't say anything, but then like by the second period, he kind of was like, "Why are you still here?" And I told him I got nowhere to go. My dad's working, and I want to be home by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So he just said, "All right." Now, mind you, there's beginning wing classes throughout the day, right? And then he had his zero period was the last period, the sixth period.
Mm-hmm.
So in that first 2 months, I actually learned how to play just by teaching myself. And throughout the course of that first semester, I ended up learning every instrument in the orchestra because I had plenty of time on my hands.
Yeah.
So I learned how to play all the string instruments, all the wind instruments. I never to this day could get a sound out of an oboe, but that was the only instrument that I couldn't conquer.
I think that's all of us, Serafin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went in and I kind of just fell into it. And it wasn't until high school that I kind of realized that because the director knew he didn't like me because I was kind of a crazy kid. Like I said, I didn't really have much direction, and I was like born and raised in South Central, and there's a lot of gang activity. So I was running around with the wrong crowds. Unfortunately, you look for some kind of structure as a kid, and that was the structure that I found. And if you weren't in a gang, you were getting beat up by a gang. So unfortunately, that was how it was back then. There's a lot. It's funny. My kids don't even know what a cholo is or a gangbanger. They don't understand that concept. I'm very fortunate and I'm very blessed in that respect that my kids we've grown past that era. And that I'm able to take my kids out of that so that they don't have to even know what it is to walk down the street and get jacked by somebody, get mugged or get jumped, and have to rely on the neighborhood to take care of you, and the consequences that arise from that.
Well, you broke the cycle. You broke the cycle.
Yeah, exactly. My wife and I were we both came from roughly the same area. She was fortunate that she moved to San Diego. We actually went to the same junior high school together. She was in the orchestra at the same time I was, and so but I stayed, in South Central, and had to enjoy that for a bit. But I had the trumpet,
Yeah.
so it was always in the back burner. When I got to high school, I became serious about it because I had some friends that showed me what trumpet playing was really all about. I was very lucky too that the orchestra director was a trumpet player, cornet player, very good one, good
Mhm.
jazz cornetist, not a high note guy, just
Yeah.
smooth jazz. It's not smooth like we would think smooth, but
Right.
50s, 60s West Coast cool bop kind of guy.
Yeah.
Beautiful tone. He was a cornet player. Played cornet is just beautiful, and all he played was this cool hip thing that I had no idea what it was. Coming from a Latin background, we don't. My dad wasn't listening to Miles Davis or anything like that.
Yeah.
But so I got to high school, and that's when somebody showed me. They gave me this cassette. They go, man, says you're all right, but you got to listen to this guy. And I was like, okay, and it was a tape of Maynard. Maynard's the Columbia Greatest Hits
Mhm.
record. It's one where he looks like he's leaning forward. I think it's a red background,
Yeah.
and it flipped me out. It just messed up my life. And I heard that, and then I looked at the trumpet, and I was like, my God, I could do that with this, and I was hooked. I was hooked. I don't know what it was about Maynard that got me. I know what it was about Maynard. It was just exciting. You
Mhm.
listen to that, and it's like energy. It's electricity. And even that period that some people dog, that the early '70s stuff that's on that record, it's awesome,
Yeah.
and it really just freaked me out. And I remember after a little bit, I started pushing the envelope, trying to figure out what he was doing. And once again, no direction. I'm 14 years old from the hood. I don't have money for private lessons at that point,
Mhm.
but I do have the desire. So I kind of just went ahead and tried to figure it out on my own. And I would tell my friends, one of these days I'm gonna play with this man. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna do it. And I was able to do it. But before that, about 15 years old was when I started my private lessons. I was very lucky that there was a band director. Sorry, a substitute teacher by the name of Ron Apple, who's still a
Yeah.
friend of mine, to this day, um, who was a studio trumpet player and a contractor
Mhm.
for the cartoons, Hanna-Barbera cartoons at that time. And he was transitioning out of music into the professional world. He actually wanted to be a therapist,
Mhm.
clinical therapist. That was more his calling, I think. And he
Yeah.
was kind of fed up with the rat race.
Yeah.
The '80s was really, really hard for music, for live music in general, and for horns. Uh, with the like Chicago and all those bands, they went from their horn sections to everybody playing synthesizers,
Right.
and all the music kind of went from live instruments to synthesized instruments, and there was a huge upheaval in the music industry at that
Mhm.
point. And he kind of saw the writing on the wall,
Yeah.
and he's like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Wow.
It's not what it doesn't feel. It's like I love playing trumpet, but it's just I'm not feeling this, and I want to have a family, and
Yeah.
well, what we all go through at some point. We're at that crossroads where, and he was at that crossroads in his life. He was, I think, in his early 30s at that point. So he went back to school, still did the trumpet thing on the side, um, but mainly focused on substitute teaching because he had a degree. And that's how we met. One day he was substituting in my class, and he would come and check out he's still a trumpet player, he's still a musician, so he would come and check out the marching band, sometimes rehearse, and he heard me. And then we met in a classroom setting, and he started giving me tapes. Hey, listen to this guy. Hey, listen to this guy. A whole different world than from what I was used to, right? Because at this point I was listening to Maynard.
Right.
And then he's like, no, listen to this guy. This guy's name's Charlie Davis. Check this guy out. Hey, listen to this guy. This is Yuan Racy. Listen to this guy. This is so and so,
Yeah.
Ollie Mitchell, or whatever. Some because his world was the studio world.
Yeah.
So he had a whole different perspective on what the trumpet should be. Hey, listen, this is John Faddis,
Yeah.
playing a jingle. He would, because he was in the studio world, he would get copies of commercials, the music, just the
Right.
music, right? And he would make me tapes, and it'd just be like 90 minutes of 30-second, 1 minute, 2 minute snippets from different TV shows, Marvin's Dam, you know, Lou Soloff, people that were studio players, prominent studio players during that time. Jerry Hay, Gary Grant, Larry
Wow.
Hall, all these people. He would have access to recordings
Mhm.
Chuck Finley, that was one of his biggest ones, you know. Chuck
Yeah.
Finley and Charlie Davis, and eventually, by the age of 15, I believe, he said, "Listen, I think you need to be taking private lessons. I can hear that you really want it, and you should be getting some direction
No.
before you mess things up." Basically, was what it
Yeah.
was. And so he said, "Listen, this is I already talked to him. This is Charlie Davis's phone number. I already explained this. I already explained your situation to him.
Hmm.
He knows that you don't have money, so you guys are gonna work it out. He has a system where people go and they students do work around the house in return for the
Yeah.
lessons, you know, and that's how we started. And that was my beginning into the journey of trying to be an actual trumpet player as opposed to, you know, just some kid that didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah. So, what? So, you're in high school, and already I could just see the work ethic. Just I'm gonna work towards it. If I, this is what I have. This is what I'm gonna use. So, let's say this is your senior year. At what point did you say this is what I'm gonna do for a living? Was it then? Were you in high school when you made that choice? And then let's talk about your college. You're obviously studying with one of the best trumpet players in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So he probably had a big effect on you. What was the
Yeah.
you told me that you went to USC. Let's talk about it's graduation day. Did you already know this is what you're going to do for a living? And talk about the transition to USC.
Yeah. So, fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know. It just depends on how you want to look at it. I look at it as fortunately, because I don't know what my life would have been. So the path I was put before me is the one I took, and so I'll say fortunately. But I had my first child at 18. So what ended up happening was is that I had been offered a scholarship to Berkeley School of Music. I had two offers. Military was on me like white on rice.
Yeah.
There was a, I remember, uh, Sergeant Collazo
Yeah.
from the military.
Yeah.
Sergeant Collazo. I wonder if he's even still alive. But he was a recruiter. He heard me, and he said, "Listen, we can offer you, the GI Bill.
Right.
You come, you play for us for a little bit of time, and we'll give you money to go wherever you want."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was awesome. But my dad was like, "Man, no kid of mine joining the military.
Yeah.
He's very anti-establishment, and he didn't want
Yeah.
me to get hurt, you know." And by this point, Desert Storm had already happened.
Yeah.
The first one, 91, was when, and I have some friends that I have some long-lasting injuries as a result. So thankfully, my dad stepped in. He's like, "No."
Yeah.
So the other one was that I had a full right to go to Berkeley, but like I said, I was a kid without direction, and I had a lot of I had a girlfriend, things happen.
Yeah.
Okay, without parental supervision, things happen, and we she got pregnant, and at that point, I was kind of like I stopped playing because I had to make a living. So the fantasy world of music of trumpet I thought was over at that point. I quit. I stopped. I dropped out of high school. I went and I got a job at McDonald's, and I started flipping burgers for about 8 months, 9 months, or something like that. Right up until the point that 9 months, yeah, 9 months. And then a buddy of mine one day says, "Hey, listen, I got this house party that he had of for those of you who aren't Mexican music, one of the things in the northern part of Mexico that's very popular is banda, right?
Banda.
It's a marching band type of thing. It's built, pardon me, it's structured like a marching band: tuba, bass drum, cymbal, snare drum, trombones, trumpets, like marching band. They go marching band. And then there's another version of that. It's called a techno banda, which is a bass guitar, drum set, horn section, singer. So think of it as that marching band, but with electronic rhythm section, right? So he had what was called a techno banda. In the techno banda, he would do house parties around town. That was very popular in that time in the early 90s, 93, 94. although it's still popular, but not as popular as it was back then. And he said, I need somebody. I got a contract for this many musicians, and my trumpet player didn't show up. It's not gonna show up, and I need somebody there just to pretend. I'll pay you. I said, I haven't played in almost a year. I can't help you.
Yeah.
He says, you don't have to do anything. Just hold the instrument up. You already know how to fake it. You know how to play. Just hold it up. And I thought about it, and I was like, I got to be at work tomorrow morning, like 6 to start flipping not burgers, making pancakes.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, whatever, man, let's go. So I went, I did it. And yeah, he was, of course, done like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was exhausted. I said, can I go, man? He's like, yeah, hold on. Here you go. And he broke me off some money. And I said, what's this for? He says, well, you helped me out. This is your pay for tonight. And I was like, all right, cool, right? And I didn't think much of it. And then I looked at it. It was $150. And I was like, what? Now, minimum wage back then was $4.25.
Yeah.
So I was not, because I had a bit of a conflict with my manager. We didn't see eye to eye. I told him the only reason I took the job was because I needed health insurance, and if I was working full time, I could get health insurance.
Mm.
But he didn't want to give me full time, and I would always complain about it. So he would give me less hours. I was working part time, making $80 every 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's nothing. I was like, and I would tell him, I go, well, how am I going to take care of my family like this? So my friend gives me $150 for 4 hours worth of work, and I'm over here busting my hump at McDonald's, making $80 every 2 weeks. And I was like, that was the epiphany. I was like, I go, does it always pay like this? He goes, yeah. Sometimes it pays more, sometimes it pays less, but it's around this much. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. Okay. You need a trumpet player? He's I thought you wanted to stay at McDonald's and keep your little job. I was like, nah, man, I got a family. I got a situation here that I got to take care of. And so that was it. That was where I started working. Mm. That was when I started making money playing the trumpet. I had actually started getting calls to work when I was maybe 15 years old, 15, 16. Yeah. So I had been playing trumpet for maybe about 4 or 5 years. And I was, because I had a natural ability to play in the upper register, I would go down to the musicians union sometimes, or there was a music store, I think it's still there, called Stein on Vine.
Right.
Where I would just fantasize about, having my own horn, my own pro horn. So I would just go and I'd pretend, and I'd play my little Maynard solo or whatever. And the owner was nice enough to not kick me out, because it's this same kid trying the same horns and never buying anything and playing the same crap all the time. That could get pretty annoying after a while. But I guess it wasn't bad for business, because you have somebody that's play testing the horns in front of clients all the time. And right across the street from the store and from the door, right by where the horns were, was the musicians union and the practice room.
Right.
So I was playing as loud as I could, like a dork,
Yeah.
But you could hear me across the street, and eventually people would come over and say, "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" I play trumpet, man. But they would call. My dad would say, "Nope, he's staying in school. As soon as he turns 18, he could do whatever he wants. But until that point, he's staying in school."
Yeah.
So as it turned out, I turned 18 and I had to start working. I dropped out of school, but that's how I started playing professional. That's the long story. That's the long version right there.
No worries. So let's talk about you got accepted to USC. You're at USC. Who are you studying with there? Is it John Thomas, or who was your teacher?
So I didn't get to USC till I was 21, because like I said, I had a kid, and I was trying to find a way to make a living. So I went out on the road for the next 3 years. And in that time, I had been fortunate to study with a few other people, one of whom is an amazing trumpet player. I wish he still lived in LA, by the name of Tony Lujan.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I was with Tony right about the same time. I met Tony maybe when I was 17. I think I was looking for somebody to expand my
Yeah.
horizon of teaching of learning,
Yeah.
and I just called the union and said, give me every trumpet player's name and phone number in the book, as they used to say, you know.
Yeah.
And so Tony's number was in there, and I called him, and we clicked immediately, and I started studying with him. So besides the studying, we became lifelong friends. And when I turned 21, he got the job over at USC teaching one of the ensembles,
Hmm.
the Latin jazz ensemble. And it was my understanding that he wasn't getting compensated what he felt he should be getting
Yeah.
compensated. So he said, "Listen, if you guys are going to pay me what I want, can I at least bring a couple of my students in?"
Yeah.
And they were like, "Sure, whatever." You know, they were just kind of, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
sure. So they kind of dicked me around for a bit, um, and oh yeah, yeah, the audition, yeah, don't worry, we'll call them, we'll let them know.
Yeah.
And finally, it was like the last day of enrollment,
Hmm.
and or close to that day, and Tony said, "Listen, you haven't called my students, and if you don't call them, I'm gonna leave." And by that point, they had already got rid of the other director, so they were kind of stuck with Tony.
Yeah.
So they said, "Okay, fine. Tell your student to come Tuesday at was it like 5:30? I want to say
Hmm.
5:30 p.m. That's when the Studio One band, the
Yeah.
studio orchestra, rehearses with John Thomas
Yeah.
as the leader, and haven't played with the group." So I went in and I played, and I was very upset that they,
Hmm.
kind of didn't take me seriously. So I was like, "I'm not going." And Tony's like, "You gotta go. I already pulled the strings. You gotta go." I said, "All right, I'll go, but whatever, man." So I went. And I played, and like I said, I was upset about the situation. So I just did everything in my power to make sure they knew who I was, according to my logic, my 21-year-old logic, and took all kinds of ridiculous things up an octave, and just, I mean, I was just being obnoxious at that point. But uh, the trumpet player that they had playing lead there, great trumpet player, and was also, it ended up being a really good friend of mine. Was a graduate student. He had a lot of responsibilities, so he couldn't play and practice as much as he wanted to at that point.
Yeah.
He was working, I believe, on his education degree more than anything. So he didn't quite have the chops. He had the knowledge, but not the chops to fulfill the position of lead.
Hmm.
So I came in and I'm, playing double A's and double C's and double D's over everything. And they're like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of what we need right now."
Yeah.
And that's how I came into to being at USC, was that way.
Hmm.
And that same day I was enrolled and I was became a student at USC.
So you're what kind of like I said, what kind of you said that the upper register came easy for you. For some it does, for some it doesn't. It has people have to work at it. So
Yeah.
let's talk about what kind of student were you when you were in college? Were you as serious as you were in high school, or even more so because more was on the line? What kind of student were you at USC? And let's talk about how you kind of like developed as a student or as a
So
player.
so I've always enjoyed this instrument. I love the trumpet.
Yeah.
It's something that's been in my hand since I was 11 years old. So 30 plus years playing this instrument. Um, and uh, I'm always curious. I'm a very curious person. I want to know how things work. I want to know why they work the way they do. And so I enjoy practicing, and I enjoy practicing the mundane things that people don't like practicing. People don't like working on fundamentals every day. I know a lot of people that be like, "Oh man, that's the Clark, really? Seriously? Come on, man, you're past that." And it's like I attribute my work ethic to two things. First of
Mm.
all, I'm innately that type of person. But second of all, I'm very fortunate that I had Charlie, as my one of my first trumpet teachers because he and everybody knows he's a workhorse. This guy still practices 6, 7 hours a day. He still is sitting at his age with his students, every student, playing each lesson with his students on top of his own practice routine. So, you know, it became very clear early on that I wanted to work. And since I wanted to work, he would just pile on more stuff.
Yeah.
So this is all based on the Bill Adams routine.
Right.
Um, he just kept on piling more stuff. He's like, well, if this kid's gonna keep on working, I'm gonna keep on giving him more stuff.
Mm.
And he would tell me, he says, you think you're working hard, the guy next to you is working harder. So you better put in more time.
Yeah.
So it was just a natural progression. And at first in high school, it was all fun and games. I like getting out of class. I like not being in PE. I like making music. I like playing along with Maynard tapes. So it was fun and games, right? But then when I became an adult, it became a matter of survival because it's like, especially once I got to USC and I stopped playing in the Mexican music circuit, and I really had to become a real professional trumpet player, not just that type of trumpet player.
Yeah.
I had started actually before that.
Yeah.
I probably around 20, I kind of got fed up with it. It's not my music.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against it, and I respect the people that do it, but it's not culturally my music, and the level of musicianship is not as good as it could be,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted more. So I started kind of diversifying and trying to find other things. Now, mind you, I was a kid that would not go to class to take a bus to go to the local community college and play with their jazz band. So, and I'm not recommending anybody do this. Education is paramount over everything. But unfortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, I was never a school kid.
Yeah.
It wasn't my calling, and not for lack of knowledge, but it's just I would get bored in class. I wouldn't show up for days, and I'd still take tests and ace them.
Yeah.
So it was just what was drew my attention was always music. It was my calling since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I just didn't know.
Well,
So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you'd be surprised, Serafin, especially people watching this, and you and I both being Latino, how common that is. We're not really, academia driven, but again, we do what we have to do because we have to do it. But it's just whatever the passion is, and in our case, it's trumpet. I
Yeah.
was the same way. I just looked for any opportunity to play, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. So getting back to what was the question again?
The question was, no, it's cool, man. So you're talking about when you were getting serious at USC.
Oh well, yeah. So the academic part of the instrument, the work ethic was built early on. At 15, when I started studying with Charlie, he just kept on giving me more things. When I became an adult and started working as a trumpet player, even though I was playing music that didn't require as much out of me, I still made sure that I was playing the best that I possibly could. I didn't stop studying. I still kept on, with Charlie. By that point, I had moved on and was mainly with Tony Lujan, and then I started studying also with Yuan Racy. So it's these are I wanted to play. I wanted to be better. I didn't know why I wanted to be better. I just knew that I wanted to be better. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna be the next, Malcolm McNabb, or I'm gonna be the next Arturo Sandoval, or I'm gonna be the next Maynard Ferguson, or I'm going to be the next Wynton Marsalis. It's just that I would hear those guys and I wanted to play like them. So what do I have to do to play like them? I got to practice more, and I got to find somebody to teach me what to do, right? So that's what I would do. I would just study, and I had some time on my hands, extra time. So I spent my days and nights. By the time I was at USC, it was to the point where I would start practicing, and I remember I would just play and play, and then I'd start to feel tired. Then I'd look up, and it was already like pitch black. It's nighttime, and I just didn't realize that I was playing all day long. And it's like 8, 9 hours had passed, and it's like this guy didn't shut up.
Yeah.
I get complaints from the professor. from the professors and from the classical. The classical guys actually like me,
Yeah.
and that was actually one of my saving graces over at USC. Now that you had brought up teachers, another important person in my life that I love dearly is a gentleman, a trumpet player by the name of Boyd Hood.
Oh wow, yeah.
Boyd was also instrumental in helping me understand that there was more to the trumpet than just the pyrotechnics.
Yeah.
You know, because I would practice right next to his studio where he would teach his lessons. And at the time, it was Boyd and Roy Coper, and they were next to each other. And I would, talk to them all the time. So one day, Boyd came out. He goes, "You sound really good." He says, "Have you ever thought about maybe adding more to your routine other than the stuff you're doing?" And I was like, "What do you got?" He goes, "Here, try this," And and it was a Jimmy Stamp. That was the first thing he gave us, Jimmy Stamp's mouthpiece buzzing routine, And I remember mouthpiece buzzing. He goes, "Yeah, it'll give you a different focus on your sound. It'll help you with flexibility." He explained it to me. Basically, what he was doing is that in between his students, he was giving me private lessons for free, unbeknownst to me. And I think he did that out of the kindness of his heart, and I really appreciate and love him for it because he didn't have to do that. He would come out and he would talk to me, and he would say, "Hey, I remember when I was young, I played commercial music before I was a classical trumpet player. I think he mentioned Dorsey or something like that."
Yeah.
And he said, and he says, "I recognize that what you could do is amazing." He says, "But there's more to the trumpet than that." He says, "Why don't you check these things out?" And it just became a friendship throughout my course at USC for those 3 or 4 years that I was there, where he'd come out periodically. He goes, "Hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. Hey, check this out. Hey, what about if you do this?" Never playing, never with the trumpet out. It was always spoken, and I appreciate that need to, or the no need to have to actually take the instrument out and be able to explain it because it hits different parts of the brain. He would talk to me about the exercises. "Hey, try this. No. Why don't you do it like this?" And then he'd leave it at that. And then a couple of weeks later, he'd come out with another packet. Next week, come out with another packet. Now, mind you, I'm practicing every day next to his studio. So I guess he could hear that I would take what he was saying to heart and would try to figure it out on my own. And when he figured that I had that I needed help or that it was time to move on, he'd come back out and he'd, give me, "Hey, check this out." So if you want to talk about who I studied with while I was at USC, that was probably the main person that I informally studied with, along with the other people that I worked with, that I studied with during that time.
Wow, that you've had some amazing teachers, which
I'm very, very, I don't take it for granted. I'm very thankful that people have been, out of the kindness of their heart, have given to me, and which is why I'm so willing to give back to other people. A lot of people reach out to me and say, "Well, I got something's happening with me here," or, "Well, how did you do this?" or "How did you do that?" And "Oh yeah, come on, let's talk," And it's turned into a nice little side business, or more nowadays a real business, because can't play live anymore. But the teaching thing is taken off for me in that respect. And I'm fortunate because I have so many teachers that have poured their knowledge into me from different areas, from different styles, even saxophone players, piano players, when it comes to commercial music and wanting to learn how to improvise. Trombone players, so I'm able to pull from different areas information to help people out.
So let's talk about life after college. You have all this plethora of great teaching. You're working with the best of the business, bar none. Let's talk about working with Maynard Ferguson. You get the call to go on the road with Maynard. Now, from what I understand, you were on one of Maynard's last bands. Am I correct?
I was in his last band.
Okay. And so let's talk about how you got the gig. What did it do to change you as a musician? And every Maynard alum I've talked to a few on this podcast, but everybody has a Maynard moment, whether it's something he did on stage or something he said to you directly. I know that's kind of a lot to take to explain, but can you talk about that?
So the call for Maynard. I was with Juancho Sanchez at the time. The first time I got called twice.
Yeah.
The first time it was really in the thick of my tenure with Juancho, and I couldn't leave because I was doing a lot of things. Economically, um, it wasn't the right time because we were just making a ton of money with Juancho.
Yeah.
And I was traveling all over the world. I was getting recognition for doing other types of playing. I was starting to really come into my own as an improviser,
Yeah.
and that gave me a huge opportunity. I was the only trumpet player, so all the trumpet solos were mine, But it also showcased me as the powerhouse that I am.
Mhm.
So it's a Latin setting. It's what I love, So the first time, a good friend of mine, Adolfo Acosta, had recommended me for it, and he said, "Listen, they're gonna call you." And I said, "I'm sorry, man, but I can't." And I think we had just maybe getting ready to record the live DVD in Montreux that ended up getting nominated for a Grammy, and we were just traveling too much, and like I said, that was an experience in and of itself. I got that job from Sal Cracchiolo, who was on his way out, and so Sal took me under his wing and kind of groomed me for the position. And when the time came that Sal was going to leave the band, I was kind of put into that position. David Torres was also instrumental in that, some of the recordings had two trumpets, so I would go in and I would play shows, and there would be two trumpets with Sal and I. And eventually, Sal left, and I took over, and Poncho and I were great friends too, so I couldn't do that. I couldn't leave him like that at that point. Fast forward a few years later and things changed, and eventually I ended up leaving. And then I got the call again with Maynard.
Mhm.
And this time I was told, this is probably your last chance to be with him.
Mhm.
So if you were ever going to do it, this is it.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, give me a couple months. I was working a lot in town, doing a lot of sessions and doing a lot of Latin work and just live work in general,
Yeah.
what you do in LA, just making a living.
Right.
And I said, give me a couple months. I need to make some money before I go out because I have responsibilities. I'm not a college kid, just getting out of college and have it's either this or go on a cruise ship. I have financial responsibilities. I said, all right, no problem. So I went. They said, just you got to make an audition tape, right? And I did. I sent them a couple of things of myself playing. They wanted to hear me improvise. They wanted to hear me playing the upper register. And I sent them clips of me playing Maynard stuff, which in hindsight was probably stupid. It's like, don't play Maynard to Maynard. Come on, But that just goes to show you how naive I was,
Yeah.
And but I did, and I did some improvisation and said, okay, Ed heard it, and Maynard heard it, and they want you to come along. So a couple months went, and I went out. I took an airplane by myself. I went out there and got to live one of my all-time dreams. Biggest dream. Like I said, when I was 14, I had prophesized, I guess if you want to say, that one day I would play with him, and here I was. I had my opportunity, and I took it the bull by the horns.
So, like I said, all the alumni that I've talked to and have interviewed say they had a Maynard moment, where it's something he said to you or something he did on stage that you'll never forget. Do you have one of those moments?
I think every moment with him for me was an oh crap moment.
Yeah.
From the moment I met him, where he was just so friendly and so kind and inviting. It was we went from the airport. They took us to the hotel, and Ed Sargent said, "Hey, listen, the boss wants to have dinner with you. He wants to get to meet you. So we're gonna have dinner you, Maynard, Pat, myself,
Mm.
we're gonna have dinner at such and such time. Be down there." So I went down there, right? And he was such a sweetheart of a man.
Yeah.
It was, he immediately with a big smile and I ordered my dinner. I said, "Oh, I see you're eating a steak. You're one of us." Yeah, yeah. That's literally what he said.
That's a great impression, by the
Yeah. Like I said, I spent a lot of time with him, so I got it down pat.
way.
And uh, from that moment on, it was like family,
Yeah.
and especially between he and I, we developed a very close bond, a friendship. We spent a lot of time together. I was a soloist, so I was up in front with him a lot. And since I wasn't never the timid type, I didn't hold back. Um, he liked that because I don't know who was there before me, but maybe they weren't pushing him as hard as he needed to be pushed.
Yeah.
You know, and right off the bat, the first one, you know, I was standing. I remember I was standing there, spraying for the Blues, and Patrick had just finished doing his bit in the song, and now, uh, I guess for those that don't know, when Maynard is not on the road, was not on the road, he wouldn't touch his instrument at all, right? So he would go the whole year, and then the summer he would usually take it off.
Mhm.
So this first show was his first show back off of hiatus.
Yeah.
My first show with the band, and everybody was flying in from all over the world. Woonsocket, Rhode Island.
Yeah.
That's where it was. Woonsocket. I still remember the name. Another reason I remember the name is because Ed made a joke about it. This is you're now playing in the mecca of jazz, Woonsocket, and everybody's like, "What? What is that? What are you talking about?" But so is this was his first gig, first show, like in a couple months. So he turns around and he goes, "Hey, kid, come here." And I kind of look back. I pay attention. Hey, this is the show. Look at Stockton, MD. Well, he's talking to you. He goes, "No, fool, he's talking to you." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Go up there. Go up there and do what? Go up there and trade with him." Trade with who? Like I said, at this point, it's not registering to me that he wants me to go up there and solo with him, and that wasn't what we had rehearsed, right? So I was kind of in shock, and I kind of pooped my pants a little bit,
Mhm.
thinking, "Oh my God, I have to go up there and trade with this guy, one of my heroes." He goes, "Don't worry about it, you'll be fine." And he started poking me with the stick, "Go, go, go!" And I was like, "All right." And we went up there, and like I said, I'm not the timid type. I'm not gonna hold back.
Yeah.
So I went for it, and and he ended up, even though he hadn't played in 2 months, he, he he ended up like rising to the occasion and like
Yeah.
obviously putting me in my place, like only he could. And but he loved it. We played the last note. We both played double C's at the end of that solo, that little when we were trading.
Yeah.
And he looked at me and he gave me a big hug, and that was the beginning of a very uh, advantageous, loving, growing experience for me because he was a type of person that if somebody had talent, he was not going to shy away from letting them spread their wings. And you've
Right.
seen it, throughout the course of his career, whether it was a baritone saxophone player taking a 30-minute cadenza, in the middle of MacArthur Park, or whether it was Lynn Nicholson playing MacArthur Park instead of Maynard, and Maynard's just there going, "Yeah," you
Yeah.
know. Maynard never shied away. He let everybody shine, and if he thought that you had something to say, he would let you do it.
Yeah.
And that you asked me about the takeaway from him was probably that is to never stand in anybody's way, never opaque anybody else's. Because trust me, I've been with band leaders or other trumpet players, that would get intimidated because who's this kid? Why is he? Well, don't stop that though. You're making me look bad. Instead of thinking about the overall picture of music and of the expression of it, and letting everybody express themselves and adding their brightness to what's happening.
Mm.
A lot of people don't look at it that way, especially trumpet players. Unfortunately, they have this stigma it's a difficult instrument. Let's start off with that. It's not easy. So if you have any modest amount of talent and you get recognized for it and are able to make a living at it, you're very fortunate. You're very blessed. So somebody else comes along that has those same talents and attributes and is younger than you or more outspoken than you. Some people will get intimidated and offended by that. The offense comes from the intimidation. It's a little bit of weakness, I think, and I encountered that a lot. So that's probably one of the main reasons why I didn't want to go out there and play with him at first. I didn't want to get into that kind of a situation on the first day, but he encouraged it. And from that moment on, I was up there every day, soloing with him every day. I don't want to play this one today. You play it. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's great, man.
You know, and he gave me a lot of space, a lot more space than I thought I was ever going to get. Yeah. So he helped me also develop my improvisational chops in that genre. Yeah. So I went from being the Latin jazz guy who maybe didn't have the best jazz pocket to the guy who could switch the hat and go, and if you want somebody that has that type of feel, you can call him because he's got both of those bags under his belt.
Yeah. So Serafin, I apologize, man. I mean, it's just there's so much to talk about because you have so much input to give us, and we're almost out of time. So I no. I
you
apologize.
Shut me up a long time ago.
no.
I can talk, but that's what my wife says. Shut up.
no, Serafin. Serafin. That it's and I'm not dropping names, but a lot of people like yourself that have a lot to give, like just right now, listen to you talk, listen to your struggles as you went through as a young player. I can guarantee you there's 1,000 of us that have gone through that, and hearing someone at the level that you're at talk about having the same things, it's just like, oh, then okay, I'm not a failure. I'm not of this. I'm not of that. The best in the world have gone through that, So no, don't apologize for that, but I apologize because we're almost out of time. But I just want to talk about, and then would you be interested in coming back? Would you be?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes,
but I wanted to talk real quick about, and we'll talk about your career in Los Angeles, which you have an amazing career. But let's talk about one thing is that let's talk about your approach and then your approach to playing trumpet. Okay. One of the things I admire a lot about you is that when you talk about the upper register, the first thing you say is that it's not about brute force. It's about finesse. And when you play, it looks effortless. Like when I saw you do This Is an Orchestra thing, that Stan Kenton thing, I saw it at Catalina's, the whole night, it looked effortless. And you're doing all these crazy Maynard parts. But when you look at the other section, you see guys that look like they're killing themselves. But can you talk about your approach real quick? Because I know a lot of people, I'm getting questions left and right asking about that.
So I was fortunate when I was a kid. There's another musician that would come around town and give talks to kids in high school by the name of a trombone player named Alex Isles, studio musician. Yeah. Amazing commercial trombonist and amazing classical trombonist, right? And a lead player and an improviser. Talk about a guy that can do it all, right? I've heard him do it all. I've played with him in sections where he's doing it all. So I remember he said something about projection, and at the time I didn't quite understand what he was talking about, but he painted a picture of you want your sound to carry to the last seat, right? Now we're all different physically, so I can't tell you, tuck this lip in and do this and do that. What you have to do is mentally envision your sound projecting that far, and then your body will acclimate to it, which is a lot of the way how the Bill Adams approach is here's the exercise, this is what you're supposed to sound like. You need to then figure out what your body's supposed to do to get there, because it's different. You play a certain way, I play a certain way. So for me to tell you, well, I hold my jaw this far open and I put my tongue here, there's certain things, because we're physically, anatomically very similar, that I can tell you and say, okay, well, you know what, this is what I do. You know, I
Mhm.
stick my jaw out a little bit. My tongue's here. My teeth are like that. You know, my throat is this, and my hands are like that. That anatomically, because we're anatomically similar, we're both human beings. They're
Mhm.
gonna work for you. But the fine tuning is something that is a journey that you're gonna have to figure out on your own. Now, as far as the projection, the volume, and the way what I what people perceive as me not or being effortless, it's not necessarily that it's effortless. It's that it's efficient, and that's something that I learned from Bobby Shue. You know, he
Mhm.
would look at me when I was playing and says, "God, you're a brute." You know, because at the time I was very brutish about it.
Yeah.
You know, I was playing on a 3C,
Oh
I
wow.
think, and I was doing all that stuff on a 3C. You know, and he's like, "Why are you working so hard?" He says, "Look, this is all you need." And I remember he hadn't played like in a week or 2 weeks. He took out his trumpet, took out his shoe lead, and just planted this double C in my face. And I just looked at him like, son of a gun. But the thing that impressed me the most about it was not only how loud it was, but the fact that he literally just got it, played it, and put it back down. He says, "You need to work towards that." He says, "You need to be able to." He says, "There's a difference between guys that can hit notes, and there's a difference between them and the guys that can actually play those notes." He says, "Right now, you're getting away with being able to play those notes, even though you play like somebody that only hits them." He says, "But eventually it's going to catch up with you." He says, Your natural ability will catch up with you, and you're not going to be able to do these things. So you need to learn how to be more efficient before you hurt yourself." And then we started talking about breathing. Luckily for me, my father was a yoga instructor, so from a young age, I was always focused on breathing. I didn't know how that would translate to the trumpet,
Yeah.
but I have a huge rib cage. I have a big throat. I have, my tongue placement, just naturally the way how I talk, it's a little bit higher in the back, so I'm creating a baffle which makes the air go faster. There's a lot of things that I was born with naturally that I did before I started touching the trumpet that made those things possible, right? Now comes Bobby and he tells me, "Hey, listen, let's start thinking about the trumpet in this way." You know, he wanted me to switch it to a smaller mouthpiece, which I couldn't. I just look at the size of my lips.
No.
You know, it's just not going to happen. Yeah, it's impossible. You know, uh, and we we've kind of tried and tried, and finally I settled on a 3D. And
Yeah.
then at that point was when we were able to start talking about the way how the high notes work, the way how the instrument works, how when you cram too much air into an instrument, you're actually making things more difficult for yourself, as opposed to when you just put enough air in the instrument and then you let the vibrations, the overtones, do the work for you. And that's kind of the way how it started for me. Was I went from this guy that was just mashing the crap out of everything to somebody who was like thinking of in terms of these frequencies, of these overtones, how do I get them to come out with the least amount of effort? Now that doesn't mean that I'm not working. It doesn't mean that it's not difficult for me. It just means that I found my Zen spot for how to do this, and it's something that I talk about. I mean, obviously, a lot of students that come to me, that's the first thing that they come to me for because they want to be able to, as you said, do the upper register thing in a way that's not as physically taxing, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's too physically taxing, you're good for one song, and then what?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, some of the Latin bands you see me playing around town, we're talking 4 hour long sets, and from the first note to the last note, I can play every note of the instrument that I can play without much difficulty, because I've acquired the ability to play it in an efficient manner, and it's all based on what I believe is two things. First of all, my tongue placement, right? I just had a student that it took us a while to figure out what was happening with him, but he had no idea of a few things. The first one was how the tongue arch works as you go in the upper register, and the second one, which is something that I've done naturally my whole life, because, like I said, I taught myself how to play. So I technically taught myself how to play wrong. I taught myself how to play that. I don't know if you could see on the.
Yeah.
Do you see how my tongue is going through my lip?
Yeah.
right? There, I got a little bit more vibration going. That is actually an easy way to start the sound. A lot easier than the way how they teach you in school, which is tongue behind the teeth, and then I mean, which is great if you're a classical player and your articulation has to be very soft because you're playing with strings and you're playing at a different volume. I understand that and I respect it, but for what we do as commercial trumpet players, I don't necessarily believe that that's the right way to do it. And you can hear it when people are struggling. To me, it sounds like it's an articulation issue and a tongue issue. So with this kid, we sat there, and the first part of it that we did was that we hit the tongue, and I worked on him with the book that I love to work out of, which is the irons. That's my bread and butter. Earl the Irons 27 exercise for trumpet and cornet. I've been playing that book since I was 14 years old, and I don't miss 6, 7, and 8. Sorry, 7, 8, and 9 every day, bare minimum. It's part of my daily routine. But the book talks about the importance of the tongue and each register. Go from oi, and the extreme register with Maynard, it's like
right.
My tongue is anchored in my molars. When I'm playing, I get hit. Don't look at my ugly teeth, but my tongue is anchored in my molars.
Yeah.
So I'm doing two things with that. First of all, the back of my tongue is raised, right? Second of all, now I've cut my oral cavity in half.
Yeah.
So what took a ton of air to fill now doesn't take that much air to fill. It takes half of the air. And that's the tongue cutting your oral cavity in half. Now the next thing is the arch in my tongue, like I had mentioned earlier, is a baffle now. If you get a saxophone mouthpiece, like a pop saxophone mouthpiece, a metal mouthpiece, they have a thing called a baffle in it. And what that literally does is that it compresses the air so that it starts off fast. So you get that shredding bright sound right at the beginning. That's what I'm doing with my tongue.
Yeah.
So with that being said, that to me is what produces the ability to be able to play for sustained periods of time in a manner that seems to be easier, right? It is easier as opposed to playing with my throat wide open and my tongue. I'm not an operatic trumpet player.
Right. I'm
a commercial trumpet player that has to have a specific sound and be able to play comfortably in a specific register. For the most part, in the upper register of the instrument. So I've not saying that I can't play something in a different way, because I think I've also proven that I can play nice melodies in the low register. And that also goes on to another part of my philosophy of, if you want to play the instrument, you got to play the whole instrument. You can't just, there's some people that pigeonhole themselves or they don't want to admit that the only reason why they're able to do certain things is because they have certain equipment.
Yeah.
Right. And that ends up handicapping them because their sound will suffer, their intonation suffers. So I'm a big proponent of, if you're going to build a big house, you got to build a big, strong foundation, which I got from Charlie, which I got from you one, which I got from Boy, which I got from Tony too. Sound, start from the bottom. If your sound sucks, then you're not going to even be able to get in the door. So, all those things are things that help my methodology to help other people to be able to get the upper register of the instrument more freely, clearly, more efficient.
Serafin,
so really that's the key, efficiency.
Right. I apologize. We're out of time. May I keep you for 10 more minutes? I have a really important question to ask you. Is it okay? 10 more minutes? Are we cool?
As much as you want.
All right, my friend. My friend Alejandro, he's a trumpet player out of Miami, Florida, salsa trumpet player. And he's a good friend of mine. He says, this is a question he asked for you. Guys, I'm trying to get to your questions, and I apologize for the time. Serafin, hopefully he'll come back and join us. But Alejandro has this, I think this is a great question. Serafin, I've heard you play with some of the best salsa bands in the world. I've heard you play with Ponzo Sanchez. I heard you play with, and so he goes on to say, how do you play with how do you use your pyrotechnics musically? He loves the way you play musically and you play those pyrotechnics. He wants to know what is your philosophy on that, to play pyrotechnically but musically.
And okay, I understand the question. Yeah. So music always comes first. Always. And although people might not admit it or might want to admit it, Maynard is the first, for me, was the first inspiration because he was the guy that played melodies up there. And I don't care what anybody says, it was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous what he did up there. So that was my model. That's always been my model, is to try to recreate that feeling, that sensation, my way, but his idea, his ideology. So I always try to temper what I do. When I was younger, obviously I was crazy, and I wanted to just let everybody know what I did. You know, typical youngster. You know. But then I came across some older guys that were like, hey, listen, man, you got to chill out with that, because pretty soon that's all they're gonna call you for. And I went through a period of that where it was just like, well, that's all they want. Jeez, there's more to me than just that. And for a while, I didn't want to even think about, just especially when I was in college and I was on Mr. Improviser. I wanted to be the next Freddie Hubbard, the next Miles Davis, and I didn't want to have anything to do with that stuff. But it's more a mindset than anything else, and not letting anybody else dictate to you how it is that you're going to play it. You always have to respect the music that you're playing, and once you figure that out, well, what your musical approach is going to be, then you incorporate the things that I talked to you about. The breathing is important. Another thing that I think I should mention, or that I should bring up, is a lot of people have a misconception that you have to just take these enormous amounts of air to be able to do the up register thing, right? It's like you have to tank up, and just you have to be like right on the point of getting a hernia because you breathe so much, right? And I strongly disagree with that. I think that because I have a background in powerlifting, I have a different understanding of the human body.
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty successful as a powerlifter. I picked up some pretty big weights in my day before my last son was born. I started getting hurt because I couldn't eat or sleep as much as I was supposed to. And I stopped. But like I said, I like to learn. I like to figure things out. And one of the things that I learned that was important was that you never want to hyperextend a muscle before a big lift, right? Whenever, like, I was going to do a big deadlift, let's say, I was never going to hyperextend my back. I was never going to hyperextend my biceps. Certain muscle groups were never going to be hyperextended because I knew that I was at my maximum capacity of loading the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
So how I translated that to the trumpet was, I started thinking about it. I was like, what I noticed is that when I do that, when I tank up a lot, I'm hyperextending muscles that don't need to be hyperextended. The abdominal cavity, the muscles that are used to contract the air to create the compression that's necessary to make the upper register sound, to make it sound, period, right? Because let's also clear up another fallacy. High notes are not created by a lot of air, they're created by fast air. How do you get fast air? Through compression, not through a massive amount of air. And that's something we could talk about the next time if you want to. It's not going to be a huge air column of air. You're actually going to have a very small air column compressed into a small area, moving at a very, very fast speed, right?
Right.
So if you're hyperextending muscles in your abdomen, and then you're contracting other muscles in areas that you don't need to be contracting, and basically engaging everything too much, then what ends up happening is that you start losing efficiency. And you need to have the muscle in a certain place according to your anatomy to be able to fully charge. If I'm doing a curl, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm lifting close to my maximum that I can do with that one bicep, let's just use hypothetical numbers, 100 pounds. If my arm is completely straight, I'm compromising my bicep. I will not be able to lift that much weight because the muscle is completely hyperextended, is extended fully and almost hyperextended, so the muscle is weak. I will damage it. Now, if instead of starting the lift at that, I started just a little bit there, now the muscle is already partially contracted. The muscle isn't hyperextended, and it's ready to flex all the way. You think of your body, other parts of your body that way, then you realize that by tanking up, an inordinate amount of air, you're stretching out the muscles in your abdomen and in your back to the point where they can't give you the amount of strength you need to produce the compression needed to then make the fast air come out of your lips and into the horn so that you produce that high note. So what do I say about that? I say don't take that huge breath, just take enough to be able to finish your passage.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to stick your stomach out until you look like you're 9 months pregnant. A lot of times, like with Maynard, when you would see him, you wouldn't see his stomach move. With Bobby Shue, same thing. You wouldn't see his stomach move. It didn't look like he was, about to like a. I remember like in the Maggio book, one of the books that I work out, it says take a breath like you're a drowning man going down for the third time in the preface.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I don't think that it's necessary. And there's St. Louis trumpet player. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting your name.
Jim Manley.
Jim Manley. Jim Manley talks about that. And when we were trying to figure it out, this is after Maynard's tribute, Jimmy was talking to me about how he approaches the instrument. And I mean, here's somebody who has figured it out to the point where he really doesn't use any air at all. It's amazing the way what he does. Do I advocate that? No. I play different. And we've talked about it and we understand that everybody has different physiological is built physiologically different. So what he's able to do physically, I might not be able to do it. But inherently, there is some parallels that go across from player to player that we can still take lessons from that and apply those to our own playing so that we are in turn able to be more efficient. My takeaway from that was I don't need to tank up because and then when I got in really in the heavy and the powerlifting, I understood why it was important to not tank up.
Right. I'm sorry. I've noticed that players like yourself and guys like Wayne and all these other guys that talk about as you get older and as you mature, you start playing smarter.
Yes.
You start playing smarter, and however that is that whatever you have to do, you just play smarter. I've heard a lot of your peers talk about I'm in my 60s now. I can outplay my 30-year-old self in my 60s. So I think guys like you have figured that out. That this is how it's not about brute force. It's about playing smarter and more efficient.
Yes.
And then in closing, and I apologize for taking your time, my friend, but
no, it's okay.
In closing, and again, Serafin will be back, ladies and gentlemen. And if you have any questions, I'll make sure we get to them. One thing, Serafin, let me ask you a question. I've noticed this is, and in closing, I've noticed in quarantine time, a lot of people are going dark, meaning their attitudes and I know a lot of our peers are saying it's over and this, that, and the other, but you have a different outlook. You have a different outlook on this. You're putting content out on the internet. You're helping people. And let me ask you this: what has been your spark? You're not playing live anymore for a while. What has been the spark or your inspiration to keep going and getting better and putting stuff out there? What is
my spark? Well, like I said, I love this instrument. I love playing. I love making music, and I don't lose hope that. Listen, first of all, I get it. It's scary. The business model for music has been changing, and after this pandemic, will probably irreversibly be changed. And I understand that for people who are set in their ways or who are already established at the upper echelon of the music industry, it's scary because this is how we make our living. And to think that things have changed so drastically in 7 months that nobody makes a living really playing their instrument anymore, and you're in your 50s or 60s and this is all you know, it could be very unnerving and it could be unsettling and to the point where it'll drive you insane and depressed and horrible, right? I get that, but I don't see it that way because it's like the wild, wild west right now. We're all frontiersmen. We're all heading to the gold rush, right? The gold rush for me is when this pandemic is lifted, the quarantine is lifted, we can all go back out on the road and tour and make our music and go back to our lives as they were, right? To me, that's
Mhm.
uh, the LA, California, the gold rush, Nevada, and all that. That's my view, right? So with that in mind, I don't think that I first of all, there's always going to be a need for live music. Second of all, uh, because of what's happening in music, we have the opportunity to be we have the opportunity to take our careers however we want to take it. Um, Learn something new. I'm learning how to use my computer more. I started off with acapella, and I started putting out some little videos of myself stacking myself. But it's popular. People like them, and so I'm gonna start learning more. And I have a home studio, so I want to learn more about that. So that when the time is right, I can go back out there. And I mean, I don't have to leave my house if for a session anymore. And so I'm doing all my work from home. My lessons I do them from home. What I teach, the writing that I do, the same thing. So it's not the end of the world. It's going to be different, and with change, is always uncomfortable. It's not easy to think that, geez, man, all I ever did was play trumpet. Now I got to learn how to work Pro Tools and do it good. Yeah, but we have time. I mean, I got 4 kids and a house and two cars and a wife, and I still find the time to do it. It's just a matter of setting your priorities, not focusing on the negative things, not focusing on, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. I can't be the trumpet player or the musician I used to be. There's no place in my life for that. I refuse to bow down to negativity. Like I said, I've been through too much in my life, and I've gone through too many struggles to give up now. And I'm sure as hell not going to teach my kids how to give up. So, just from growing up in South Central and being in that life and surviving because I felt that that wasn't the life for me, and all my friends that I grew up with pretty much that were musicians are dead because they stayed banging and I didn't. You know, uh, so I think that a lot of it is mindset and a lot of it is repurposing your education. Uh, Learn in the meantime, pick up that Pro Tools, and figure it out. There's plenty of courses out there that'll teach you online courses that'll teach you. Listen, YouTube is an amazing resource. I'm teaching myself all kinds of things, learning it from YouTube. Right? My kids, they're messing around with the piano and the guitar because of YouTube. There's so many things you can learn for free, but you can also and if you really want to delve into it, you could shell out some money. It's an investment.
Yeah.
It takes time. It's not going to happen overnight. But the benefits of all of that in the long run are that you'll have more tools because at the end of the day, when this is all done, this is the people that are going to survive, the ones that have the most tools, that have the most hats, the jack of all trades kind of deal, right? It went from in the 60s and 70s and maybe even 80s, you could be a fourth trumpet player and you could make a decent living. You could have a house or a nice apartment, and that was it. Then the 80s hit. Then all of a sudden, it was just one man per section. And all of a sudden, 90s, now it's one man for the whole session, right? 90s, 2000. Now you have to be a lead player, you have to be an improviser, you have to be a classical section player, you have to be a classical soloist. There's all these other things. So now you're just going to add some more things to that repertoire of things that you can do, right? Now you're going to add engineer, you're going to add maybe you learn how to make videos to make content for your page to make you because let's face it, right now nobody can see me live, but they can go to my Instagram page or my Facebook page and find videos of me playing. And the better I get at it, the better those videos are going to be, and the more people are going to want to see them. And I'm writing things out, and I'm going to continue to record myself so like that people have more things to watch. Keep them entertained, keep myself out there, and then hopefully when this is all over, I'll be able to maybe start making dents towards that solo career that I've always wanted, and
Mhm.
to start moving myself more as a soloist as opposed to working for somebody else. I have my own thing. I have some ideas that I've I've written some songs, and I want to get out there and put them out there, and
Mhm.
maybe make a record as a soloist, and try my luck at that. But in the meantime, I'm still doing my shedding. I'm broadening my horizons as far as my intellect is concerned, learning more about the industry. Um, I never thought much about it, but now I'm more involved in NARIS, in the Grammy selection process. I'm a
Yeah.
voting member, so I'm looking for things to continue to grow. And I think that's the important thing is that we get older, we get a little bit slower, mentally, our acuity starts to slow down. But you can't there's, there's no place for that. That's how you become a dinosaur.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be a dinosaur.
Dinosaurs go extinct. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so first of all, Seraphine, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out of your day to spend with us and share with us about your experiences. It's having people like you talk about the same struggles we all go through is refreshing. Knowing that guys on your level can relate to what we're going through. As you know,
100%.
yeah.
No, thank
Also, guys, Seraphine is one of the nicest guys on the planet. So if he's very approachable, if you want a lesson, I am sure just friend him on Facebook or send him a message. I'm sure he would be more than happy to talk with you or what have you. And so that's one of the things too. He's very approachable, so don't think you can't approach him. He was very nice with me when I asked him to do this. So if you would like to have a lesson with him or take lessons, I'm sure you could, send him a Facebook or Instagram. Am I correct?
Yeah, yes, and that, like I said, that's kind of been the basis of my income is through private lessons. So if anybody found what I had to say useful and wants to learn more about it, I do give private lessons. I have plenty of time now, thanks to the pandemic. Uh,
Yeah.
whereas before I would shy away from the private lessons because I was busy working. And I've always liked doing it. It's just I never really had the time, but now I have the time. So if you guys found something useful in what I had to say and would like to further explore some of the concepts that I have a lot of. I've been very fortunate. Like I said, I've had a lot of wonderful teachers in my life that have taught me different ways to get to the same path. And I'm very analytical in the way how I work. So a lot of people that have come to me with chop issues, I've been able to resolve them because I'll put myself in their place and I'll be able to walk them away from. And usually it's just small, little, tiny, And I've been through it myself, being a working musician where I'll swell up and I'll move just a little bit to get by to the next gig, and before you know it, things start to fall out of whack, and you start falling and spiraling, and I've been there, and but because of my analytical mind, I always find my way back, and I've been able to use that as an important resource for players who had it and then lost it. I can bring them back, or if you didn't have it, we can figure out a way to get you going to the direction you want to. But if anybody would like to get with me for some lessons, my inbox is open. Joey has my contact information. Um, if you're serious about it, we can get you going. So yeah, please hit me up.
Yeah.
And
Again,
and, and don't forget to like my videos. If you see one of my little trumpet videos out there, give it a like and a share.
guys, I would highly suggest it. Again, I'm not. Yeah, I just if you want to see an example of, and I call it efficient playing at its peak, watch Seraphine's and watch how easy it makes it look. It's just so he makes it look very easy, and I that's one thing I really admire about it. It's very musical. It's just not another high note video. But I wanted to thank everybody for joining us today. Seraphine, you will be back, right? You will be back with
Oh,
us.
definitely, definitely. I'll be back with you. Yeah.
All right, awesome. And Seraphine, thank you again. Again, Serafin Aguilar, you can find him on Facebook, you can find him on Instagram. And we'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment. If Serafin sees them, I'm sure he'll answer your questions as well. But again, enjoy the rest of your Sunday, guys. And thank you so much for joining us for this this brief webinar. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Take care.